A report dropped by our Shams Charania this morning detailing a turbulent summer for the star who expressed doubts about Milwaukee's ability to truly contend.
In the 2025 offseason, the Milwaukee Bucks re-signed famed benchwarmer and towel boy Thanasis Antetokounmpo. They also signed Alex Antetokounmpo, the guy who averaged 4 minutes a game for the Greek basketball team and shot 21% from the field. The Bucks signed not just one, but two brothers of Giannis, both of whom are clearly not NBA-level players. Yet something tells me they were pressured to do this. You see, ever since the Milwaukee Bucks won the championship in 2021, there have only been two consistent things that happened every year since then. One, they underperform in the playoffs and get knocked out early. And two, every summer, they do everything they can to make Giannis happy. Through the decade of the 2020s, there's been no superstar as vocal as Giannis when it comes to his desire to win championships, multiple of them. So much so that it's now a tradition where reporters ask him every summer the same question: do you plan on staying in Milwaukee? To which his response is always something like, if I think we have a chance to win, then yes. This has put the Bucks in a precarious situation, cause Giannis is the greatest prospect they've had since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. If they lose him, it might take another 3 or 4 decades to recover. He's a once-in-a-generational talent, so they have no choice but to appease him. Thus, they've conceded to his every demand. In this video, let's take a look at how the Milwaukee Bucks became more desperate than ever to not just improve their roster, but to rebuild at a frantic pace to satisfy their franchise superstar.
Milwaukee Bucks have signed Miles Turner, which is a true stunner of a move on a variety of levels.
In the post-championship years, the Bucks' decision to trade away Jrue Holiday for Damian Lillard was the biggest decision they made in recent years. They gave up on their starting point guard, the guy who was the missing piece this franchise needed to win the title to begin with. Holiday provided a staunch, aggressive perimeter defense and leadership that fits seamlessly into the Bucks' roster. However, as the years went by, the Bucks' offense became very predictable in the playoffs, which led to opposing teams having a much easier time shutting them down. The plan was simple: slow down Giannis, and the Bucks would have no offensive creation left.
Sit down! And then the stare down, knocks the jumper down, and then stares Holiday.
This reached a climax in the 2023 playoffs. As the #1 seed of the conference, they got humiliated in the first round by the Miami Heat. And shortly after the loss, Coach Mike Budenholzer got fired. Coach Bud had been with the Bucks for a while, he led them to a title, and everyone on the team loved him. So it seemed out of nowhere to fire him so quickly after losing a series where Giannis wasn't even healthy. But upon his firing, Giannis stated to the press, "I would not be the best version of myself if I don't know that everybody's on the same page and everybody's going to sacrifice time away from their family like I do. And if I don't feel that, I'm not signing. This is my team and it's going to forever be my team, but we have to win another one." The full interview with the New York Times was much more detailed, but the general idea was there was a very real chance Giannis was gonna leave. I think he deserves praise for being open about it, cause most superstars would say much more ambiguous things. Thus, in the 2023 offseason, it was time to panic. The Bucks swung for the fences and made a very bold move that they hoped would change the course of the franchise. Perennial All-Star and one of the greatest scoring point guards of all time, Damian Lillard. Also, around this time, they hired Adrian Griffin as their new head coach. This is important because Griffin was Giannis's first choice. It was his decision to hire him, so that's what the Bucks did. On the surface, it seemed like it was going well. The Bucks were rolling. They started the season with a 30-13 record. But in the locker room, it was turbulent. Despite their record, the Bucks fired Griffin. For what, exactly? Well, apparently, his relationship with the players, and especially Giannis, soured over the course of a few months. It started all the way back in training camp when assistant coach Terry Stotts stepped down when Griffin screamed at him. Apparently, he was having a private conversation with Giannis and Dame, but Griffin did not like his assistant having a private conversation. This was the first sign that perhaps this team was a ticking time bomb, ready to go off at any moment. For a while, their dysfunction behind the scenes was masked by their success on the court. The main culprit being Griffin's habit of experimenting with defensive schemes that the players were perplexed by. While the team's offensive firepower improved with the addition of Dame, it still wasn't perfect, as him and Giannis had a hard time playing together. Defensively, however, the Bucks experienced a drastic fall, hovering near the bottom 10 in defense for much of the season, primarily because of Adrian Griffin. In one scenario, Giannis even called him out publicly. Quote, "We have to defend better, we have to trust one another better, we have to be coached better. We have 4 months to get better, so let's see." 2 weeks later, by the end of January, Griffin got fired. Not only did the Bucks bend to the will of Giannis to hire him in the first place, but when their relationship fractured despite a 30-13 record, they immediately fired him. Anything to keep Giannis happy. Of course, then they hired Doc Rivers, because why the hell not? Why not hire a guy who built his entire reputation off a single playoff run with a stacked roster, and hasn't done anything since then? I'm sure that'll work well. Rivers, as the head coach, did not finish the season well, and combined with injuries to their core group, the Bucks got eliminated in the first round yet again. In fact, for 3 straight years, they lost in the first round.
5 seconds, 4 seconds, Halliburton for the lead, 1.3 to go!
2025 was by far the most depressing loss, blowing multiple leads in the fourth quarter, a near double-digit lead in the last minute, and seeing Damian Lillard go down with a torn Achilles after he spent so long recovering from a blood clot, as we witnessed Giannis play at a level unseen since his legendary run back in 2021. The dude averaged 33 and 15, a one-man wrecking crew, but it still wasn't enough against a more well-rounded Pacers team, who killed the Bucks from all angles. With yet another season wasted, you can imagine the desperation among the Bucks management. Immediately after they lost, ESPN wrote an article that reportedly said, "Adetokounmpo is open-minded about exploring whether his best long-term fit is remaining in Milwaukee or playing elsewhere." Here we go again. At this point, it's obvious that Giannis is going to his agent to release news like this to the public, to pressure the Bucks to try harder to make moves to help him. Or else, he'll leave. Shortly after he said this, the Bucks made a monumental decision. They waived Damian Lillard and his remaining $113 million on his contract in an unprecedented decision. This turned out to be the largest waiver in the history of the NBA in terms of the amount of money remaining on a player's contract. And to do this right after Lillard suffered a torn Achilles and started his rehab, that's tough. But they heard what Giannis said. His frustrations have been brewing over the years, but it reached a breaking point in the 2025 offseason. After a shameful display from his teammates in the playoffs, he made it known he was on the brink of leaving.
So you staying in Milwaukee? Probably. We'll see. See.
Giannis was asked by his viewers if he was staying in Milwaukee, to which he responded, probably, we'll see. In reality, was he really on the brink of leaving? Or is this yet another tool to pressure the Bucks to make another big change to the roster? With the news of the Bucks signing 2 of his brothers, whom, let's be real, neither of them belong in the NBA, it marks yet another desperate attempt to keep Giannis there. Arguably, the biggest decision came perhaps not from Giannis himself, but the rest of his family. A recent development that surfaced was his wife and his 4 kids moved to Greece. Why is this important? Well, for the longest time, his family was the only thing keeping him in Milwaukee. Whenever the conversation came up for potential trade rumors, he always shut it down and claimed his family came first, and his family loved Milwaukee. So he had no intention of leaving the city that laid the foundation for not only his career, but his entire family. Over the years, however, with his wife preferring to move to Athens instead, it means Giannis's attachment to the city of Milwaukee is at its most vulnerable it's ever been. In the mind of Giannis, he's thinking, what's the point of staying here if the team is losing, and my wife and kids are not even here? Giannis can now request a trade or join any team he wants.
For the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that, as we just talked about, came into this summer needing to try to show Giannis Antetokounmpo that they have the ability to compete in the Eastern Conference.
Anyway, with the Bucks' decision to waive and stretch Damian Lillard's enormous contract, they used the additional cap space to snatch Miles Turner from the Pacers. With the loss of Brook Lopez, Turner is the perfect replacement for him. He's essentially a younger version of Lopez, and having a stretch 5 with elite defensive skill is the perfect center to pair with Giannis. With his time in Milwaukee up in the air, the Bucks did not have time to wait for Lillard to recover, if he recovers at his age. This largest waiver in NBA history came from sheer desperation of the Bucks management, needing to rid themselves of the dead weight that is Lillard's contract. They were looking for any way to open up their roster and improve the team. I would say, considering their timeline, it was the right choice to make. They don't have time to wait for Lillard to return. Now, did the Bucks roster improve much from the previous couple of years? I don't think so. Miles Turner is a mere replacement and slight upgrade at center. But the issues that plague this team, from their stagnant offense, inconsistent, incompetent players, the Bucks' chance to win the title is not as hopeful as you might think. Even in presumably the weakest Eastern Conference in decades due to the absurd number of injuries to stars, the Bucks are still not the frontrunners. Having the best player in the conference can only do so much when the rest of the team is very lackluster. With all that being said, the most perplexing dilemma within the organization has to be their coach, Doc Rivers. Upon taking over the role of Adrian Griffin, Rivers has underperformed time and time again. But in the eyes of the organization, that doesn't matter. They don't care that Rivers sucks as a coach. The only thing that matters is Giannis loves him. They have a strong connection, a great relationship off the court, to the point where he doesn't want him fired. Giannis only has positive things to say about Doc, so even with their struggles as a team, Doc still remains. The Bucks bend to the will of Giannis, and it's crazy how far he's gone. Even bad decisions like signing his brothers and re-signing Rivers to a 4-year, $40 million deal are things that should not happen under normal circumstances. But with the threat of losing the greatest talent they've had in decades, they have no room to negotiate. Anyway, that's all folks. Let me know your thoughts on this whole dilemma between the Bucks and Giannis. Do you think the team is going too far to appease him, and do you think Giannis leaving is inevitable? The Bucks roster isn't really much better compared to previous years, and they seem to have no identity. So how far do you really think they can go in the playoffs? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. And of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.